Hi guys, welcome. We're just going to let everybody have a minute to join audio, and we know that some people will be trickling in, so we're going to give everybody just a minute to get settled, and then we will go ahead and kick it off.
Go Roan Roo.
All right, guys, for sake of time, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Just really quickly, my name is Jen Fleming. I'm the Career Advisor for Education, Nonprofit, and Government at DePaul's Career Center. And so myself and my colleague Libby, who will introduce herself here in a second, are really excited to be able to bring these panelists from a variety of different areas that touch on social justice work to you today. Libby is going to be moderating our panel, so I'm going to kick it over to her. But just really quickly, if you're able to have your camera on, awesome. If not, we totally and completely understand. And just as a heads up, we will be recording the event, so keep that in mind. And then you will have access to this. We will send this once it goes through our communications team, probably in about a week, to anyone that is registered on Handshake to have access. So without further ado, I will go ahead and kick it over to Libby.
Hey everyone, my name is Libby Woodard. I am the Assistant Director of Employer Engagement and Internships here in the Career Center at DePaul. So Jen and I work together to co-lead the education, nonprofit, and government career community. So we put on events and programming just like this to kind of get you guys exposed to different careers and work experiences. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off by letting the panelists introduce themselves. So we'll start with Sam, if you want to go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Brenner. I am the post-secondary success coach at Embarc. A brief kind of overview of what Embarc does. We provide hands-on experiential learning for high school students in Chicago's most divested neighborhoods. Our traditional model is a 3-year program that really allows students to embrace their identities, push the boundaries of their communities, and lead and create change. And so this started because our co-founders saw the need for our students to get outside their neighborhoods and have experiences that students in other neighborhoods were getting because either the school trusted them or their families were taking them on these experiences, but our students weren't getting them. And from there, it just grew even bigger, and now we have a few different models that we operate. My background, I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Drake University. Did not realize I wanted to go into teaching. Ended up doing an alternative certification program through Teach for America. Got my master's in education and teaching from Dominican University. And I taught for a while. I taught senior seminar classes, which are those post-secondary prep classes, ran the post-secondary team over at Manly Career Academy, which is a high school on Chicago's west side. And that led me to where I'm at now in Embarc.
Awesome, thank you. Whoever else wants to go next, we can do it that way.
I'm happy to jump in. Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney McGovern, and I am a co-founder and the executive director at Hope's Inn, which is a nonprofit here based out of Chicago. And our mission is to empower families living in Guatemala and then help to develop the next generation of humanitarian leaders. So we have a variety of programs in Guatemala that really focus on ostracized communities, young mothers, and then persons with disabilities. And then in regards to our humanitarian development, we work with a lot of students and young adults in the Chicagoland area, really just trying to engage them with social advocacy and global impact. And yeah, a little bit about myself. I grew up in the Northwest suburbs. I went to college at New York University, and I actually majored in nonprofit management and minored in Spanish. So I'm excited to be here, and yeah, thank you for having me.
I guess I can go next. Hello, everyone. My name is Enrique Mendoza. I'm a legal advocate with the Legal Council for Health Justice. I love our mission statement, which is, to use the power of the law to secure dignity, opportunity, and well-being for people facing barriers due to illness or disability. So a lot of the folks that we work with have chronic or stigmatizing health conditions, and or are experiencing poverty, or are children who are medically complex. And so we are a legal aid organization, so we provide free legal services for folks in need. So our main areas of expertise are like public benefits, but especially related but we also do a lot of policy work related to health justice. So I guess about me, I am a DePaul alumni. I'm a proud DePaul alumni. I majored in political science. I had some very wonderful professors who actually pushed me into doing embarking in this journey and working in a career in social justice. And so I'm really thankful for all those professors that sort of pushed me there and always challenged me. And yeah, I think that's a little bit about me. And actually, I'll go ahead and just popcorn it over to Ryan, who I happen to know and who I happen to be a member of the organization, the wonderful organization she's going to be talking about right now. So.
Thanks, Enrique. Hey, everyone. My name is Ryan Kelleher. I'm the elections director with United Working Families. We're not a traditional 501c3 nonprofit. We're a 501c4 and a PAC. So we do elections, which is why I'm the elections director. So, I think a lot of nonprofits in some ways operate within the world that we live in. And I think my role is to fight for the world that we want, not the world that we have. And so that is my job as an organizer. And so I work on the political side. We elect people to office, and then we push an agenda that increases affordable housing, that defunds police, that invests in communities and invests in poor and working class people and people of color. So I got here, I kind of have like a weird, I'd say rare background, I guess, just because my parents are organizers, which I feel like is like newer, like people didn't know about organizing until like Obama, I feel like. And so like I had trouble like growing up being like, yeah, my parents, like, I don't know, they like go to jail sometimes, like, I don't know, but it's like for good thing, like, I don't know. So my mom's a community organizer, my dad's a union organizer. I grew up in Chicago in Albany Park, grew up in CPS, saw gentrification push Black and working class poor people out of Chicago. And so I'm fighting to bring back the Chicago that I grew up in, that is quickly moving in the direction of San Francisco, which I'm really concerned about. So I majored in business, which doesn't make any sense. I went to Marquette. I feel like to be an organizer, most people major in like political science or history of some kind, or social justice, if your school has that. But I think you could really major in anything. I think if I did it again, I would probably major in African-American history.
That's great, thank you. A few of you already kind of mentioned your past experience and academic degrees. What types of experiences have you had that led you kind of to this point? So you mentioned your degrees and things of that nature, but what other internships, jobs, what led you to where you are now? whoever wants to start, kick it off.
I can start. This actually, I'll probably touch on this and some other pieces of this later, but Ryan, you made me think about this, that a lot of people that work in our organization and just in education and CPS in general have experience doing community organizing or volunteering. And the reason for that is because a lot of people in education are passionate not only about education, but other causes, especially in social justice. And so there are a lot of experiences that lead them to becoming an educator or causes they want to pursue in addition to being an educator. And I look in our organization at some of the different positions, like our programming team that doesn't necessarily have teaching backgrounds. A lot of them have community organizing backgrounds. And so when I think about experiences that I've been involved in, I worked at Planned Parenthood when I was in college. I worked at the Illinois Department of Public Health. And so those kind of experiences gave me tools that make me successful in my job, but I also think they led me to learn how to be a better advocate and how to align myself with others who are also advocates, because creating any sort of systemic change is not done alone. You cannot do it alone. And so those experiences of working with other people that are working towards common goals or causes, all of those will help you in whatever career you pursue in social justice, because this is not individual work in any role.
All right, I guess I'm gonna go next because I feel so strongly about this. You have no idea. So I sort of started sophomore year. I took like an immigration law class, and that sort of inspired me to do a lot of working with immigrants. So being from an immigrant family myself, it really sort of, I don't know, that's when I had sort of like my political awakening, my woke moment, I guess. And so what ended up happening is that I started looking for opportunities with nonprofits who are serving immigrant populations. So luckily, I started applying everywhere, and I'm like, wherever I can get something, that's where I wanna be, even if it's not officially an internship. Volunteer experience really speaks, volumes to a lot of employers. So luckily, I was able to find an internship though with Min Mujeres Legal Services. I interned for them for like about a year. And so, during my undergrad time, I had to, go to school, work, and also, do the internship. But I wanted to stick with it because I'm like, I want to make sure, that I'm learning, and that, in ways I'm also looking for opportunities for mentorship, because, many organizations might offer that. Others, other times you might have to find ways and, just to learn leadership skills, to learn all the skills that you can while you're there. But luckily I stumbled upon Mi Mujeres, and so they were super intentional about like making sure that, that they were, helping me practice with like interviews. They were writing me letters of recommendation for stuff. I even remember, I think I got a scholarship for being there for, I don't know how long, but point is that they received a call. They gave me a good recommendation. And so it was just great. It was great being there and in that space. And so from there on, I just made sure that there were no gaps in my resume. I was doing a lot of unpaid work before I even got to a paid job. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable how long I lasted without like, I had a part-time job, but it's sort of like, I would really love to do something like that I'm passionate about, and also get paid, right? But a lot of the times, it did take a lot of sacrifices, and I did have to, while I needed the money, I still needed to make space for that volunteer and internship experience. And so I just try to make sure that there were no gaps. And I did a lot of stuff. I mean, I dipped my toes in a lot of waters. I mean, from union organizing to economic justice to, what's it called? Yeah, working with getting a congressional internship. What's it called? Working as a Vista, which is how I got to legal counsel, because, you know, I just kept stumbling upon opportunities, and I was just like, I'm just gonna keep on applying until like I get a foot in an organization. And so my Vista position was actually marketing and development. I had no clue what anything, like I have no idea how to do marketing development, but I knew it was a legal aid organization, and I knew that I was like, you know what, okay, I might be able to finesse my way in, but also like, I don't know, I'm gonna try my best. And I don't know, luckily they chose me. There wasn't much marketing and development work. You know, it was a very flexible position, thankfully. So I was able to stay there. And then luckily enough, you know, a full-time position opened, and I was able to apply for it, even though I didn't feel qualified for it. But nevertheless, you know, I had support from my supervisor, and so she was able to do, you know, help me sort of. She literally took me to a conference room, and she's like, okay, put all of your, you know, qualities on these cards, and let's take a look at them, and let's see what matches with the position, right? And so it sort of taught me what the value of lived experience is when it comes to, you know, doing interviews and mentioning that. And I think that speaks a lot, because you know, when I was doing my interview, they asked me, well, okay, have you done other jobs? Not necessarily that are related to, you know, the work that we do, but have you done other jobs where, I don't know, you have experience working with others? Do you just have that world experience, right? And so I was able to talk a little bit about that. And like, I never thought that would be like a thing, right? But, and every position is different, every job is different, obviously, but anyways, I think it's always about like really looking at your qualities and making sure that you're building as best of a, you know, resume as you can, so that you know, when the interview time comes, you're able to talk about all that. But yeah.
I can go. Yeah, I would echo what Enrique and Samantha said about volunteer experience. I think that's important, and that's how you learn the work. And a lot of times I think most nonprofits or social justice organizations are running on like limited resources, and you don't feel like you have time to like train people necessarily. And so it's like always best when you have applicants that already kind of know how to do it. And I think for organizing, and when I say organizing, I've learned that a lot of people think organizing means like being organized and like putting things in the right place. And that's not what I mean. When I say organizing, I mean like building power to make change by people coming together and making changes that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do alone. Something that Samantha kind of mentioned. And so I think I got some of that good experience through Midwest Academy. They used to, I don't know if they still have, but they used to have like a summer organizing institute that like you could apply for in Chicago. And so I did that for one summer. And that was helpful in learning kind of like the basics. There's also, I don't know, there's like books. I don't know, it depends if you learn from books. Like, I don't know how much I don't learn from books that much, but some people do. I really like Jane McAlevey, who is a union organizer who wrote No Shortcuts, which is a book about building power that I find really useful. And she just started a training program called Organizing for Power that's free and worldwide. And it's a 6-week-long thing. And I've never done it, but I'm starting it with a cohort of UWF members next Tuesday. But I think they do it somewhat regularly. So I think it's good to do stuff like that. And also to like push yourself and take risks and like take on local issue fights in your neighborhood. And I think building relationships is really important. So, if you hear someone or you see someone that you're interested in, go up to them, push yourself and ask them if you can have coffee with them. Get their phone number. Like that is, I think, necessary in order to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, I think these are all awesome experiences to hear about. And I guess the only thing from my perspective, I guess just my experience getting involved with international development. My parents started taking my family, so my siblings and I, to do international service work when I was 10. So I was really young when we started. My parents were always involved with different social justice organizations. And I think just getting exposed at a young age made me really curious and passionate about what was going on in the world. And so just growing up, I guess I got involved in different international organizations, but then once I got to college and I was in New York City, I just really tried to take advantage of all the different organizations that were there. And I think the same thing for students at DePaul. You are in this great city with a variety of organizations. You could probably find, a nonprofit with a staff of 1 or 2 or a staff of 200, right? So you really have all these different organizations at your reach. And maybe you don't do a full-blown internship for them, but maybe you do what Ryan was saying, where you ask to have a cup of coffee or a 30-minute phone call and just try and learn. And just personally, something that I felt helped, I guess, from the standpoint of like when you're trying to start a new organization, was just finding good mentors and finding opportunities where people will be in that similar stage. So I participated in the Clinton Global Initiative University, which is a gathering of hundreds of students from across the world, really. And you really get to network and meet different people that who might be trying to start a social initiative. And then also trying to, maybe learn from an older organization that's been around and is more established, to meet people that have, walked the path that you are just starting on, but have been doing it for decades. So I got involved with some organizations in New York, like the Children's Village, which is the largest residential program for youth in foster care in New York. And then was also involved at the United Nations. So it just gave a very diverse look at social impact and social advocacy, and really how there's so many different ways that can play out in the world.
Great, thank you. I know a few of you mentioned the next question that we have, question number 2. You mentioned some things like mentoring and volunteering and informational interviews, but is there anything else, any kind of advice that you would give to students or alumni that are looking to have a career that's involved with social justice?
I would say one huge piece of advice that was given to me when I started working in education is that you will be burnt out so fast, no matter if you're a teacher or working in some other area of education like I do now, if you don't figure out your work-life balance. And as a lot of the world knows, there isn't a lot of that in education, because the system forces teachers and other school staff to do a lot of their work outside of work hours. And something a mentor taught me, actually, when I was working for Planned Parenthood before I ever became a teacher, was how to advocate for myself, stand up for myself when I needed a break, when I needed to take on less responsibility. I worked at a very small school. I was running a lot of initiatives outside of teaching in my classroom. I was planning graduation and prom and all of these other things. And even though I was a young teacher at the time, I had to learn to stand up for myself tell my supervisors when I was not able to perform at the capacity that I should, and that I know I could perform at, delegate those tasks and figure out what self-care meant for me. And that applies to now any sort of work I do that is involved in social justice and change, because it can burn you out so fast. And a lot of us are really dedicated and hard workers because we care about what we're doing so much. It feels like more than a job because it's something that we're passionate about. And so finding what was able to sustain me throughout this process is the only way that I could continue to do this work. And I think that applies no matter what sort of work you do. And you can start that now when you're in college, figuring out what those things are that work for you and practicing advocating for yourself in small ways with your professors on certain assignments, being more proactive if you're not the sort of person that'll go into office hours. Even if you don't feel like you really need it, practice that. Practice what it looks like to advocate for yourself, because the more you do it, the more you'll get comfortable with the fact that employers should expect that. And a lot of times, if you don't do it, they're not going to notice and it's going to go unsolved and it's not going to make you happy. So take care of yourself and practice that earlier on before you graduate and have a full-time job so that you can sustain that when you do move on in your career.
That's awesome advice. Very important, especially to do now, so you can implement it once you get to the point of a full-time job. So I guess we can move on to number 3. What hard and/or soft skills are expected or useful in the setting that you're in your careers?
I think, I know this might sound cheesy, but I feel like I was thinking about this question, and I think it's really just your skills, whatever skills you have. I think maybe, when people think about social impact, they think, maybe about like 1 or 2 types of roles or organizations, but really it takes such a diverse team of people and leaders to make something happen. And I think that, any kind of skill set that you have, you could probably take what you already know and plug that into an organization and be really dynamic there. So I know it's not to have like a cop out answer, but I think that, if you're a great writer, like nonprofits, we have to compete with marketing budgets that, like Nike has, or these for-profit organizations that are on your social media feeds and are catching your attention. And, we need writers, we need graphic designers, we need, even if you're good with computers and technology, that's a big piece of what it takes to run an organization in, this day and time. So I think sometimes, there are some skill sets like that you will learn and develop as you spend time at a nonprofit. But I think that your unique skill set can really be dynamic at an organization. So I studied nonprofit management, but I worked on like teams in a classroom setting where there were business students, or there were computer engineering students, or there were pre-med students, and we all could come together and use our different expertise to just make a more innovative idea. So don't underestimate what you already know, and how you can really use that to make an impact in your community.
So I guess in terms of like hard skills for my job is like a lot of dealing with a lot of paperwork, right? And learning how to fill out stuff. Writing is definitely one of those things. And I think, I guess, effective communication skills or public speaking skills. I constantly have to practice at it because sometimes, blah, 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 I don't know, word salad, right? And so I think it's always good. And I think that's why it's also important, like, to learn how to do different things, like even like learning how to code switch and stuff. So one of the things that I love about community organizing, and I think this connects a lot to what like Ryan was saying, but the wonderful thing about that is that, you know, you're speaking to people at different people with diverse backgrounds at different points of life, right? So I think that's an absolute skill when you're able to, you know, talk to someone, have a conversation with them, and then speak to someone at a, you know, at a higher level, right? So I think doing that is definitely a skill. And there's other things that you probably don't realize about yourself that you might be, you know, that might be, yeah, transferable skills, right? So for instance, in my job, you know, you have to be good at like advocating for folks, right? You have to be the person who, you know, if they're afraid to, you know, assert their rights or like, you know, really fight for, you know, something that was unjustly done to them, right? You have to be the one to sort of like be able to advocate for them and let, you know, talk to the other side, to whatever institution, and you know, get relief for this person, right? And so even if you've done, I don't know, phone calls for your mom, I don't know, they for identity theft, I don't know, something like that. I know growing up, I used to have to make a lot of phone calls to translate for my parents. And so in some ways that I feel like that's helped me even now, anytime I'm on the phone with like a client or something, I realize I'm just like, man, I've had practice. I've practiced this many times in my childhood, and I just never realized how much that's helped me, you know, develop that, like now that I'm, you know, working professionally. But yeah, again, I think it also takes you to just sit down and really map out all those skills and really say, okay, what can I highlight? You know, when I'm looking for an internship or a job or whatever. I think sometimes we just overlook those, and it's important to, yeah, to really, you know, put it all out there.
Yeah, I agree with the advocating and the self-care? No, that was the last question. Okay. But for this one, the only thing I would, well, I don't know, I'm thinking about a lot of things. I think one of them is like having the hard conversations and not shying away from them, which I don't always do, but I think it's good to try to do, because I think at least in organizing, I'm learning, like, you know, it's easier to like talk to the people that like already support you, or not you, but the campaign that you're fighting for. And many times in order to win, you need the people that like people trust and people follow. And that person might be, for example, if you're forming a union, that person might be like hesitant about the union, but if you could get them, you could get the whole work site and then you could win. And so but it's a harder conversation, right? Because that person maybe has had bad experiences with unions and has valid reasons for feeling the way that they do. And so I think listening is the important skill that I'm thinking about, like really actively listening to like what they're telling you, and therefore like meeting people where they're at. And I don't always do this, but I would like to. And I think, you know, if like I'm working on an electoral campaign, like usually you need people who can like fundraise or like knock doors or like make phone calls. And so when someone wants to help out, but they're like not comfortable talking to people, it's like, I sometimes struggle with like, okay, what role can I, like everything's needed, like Courtney was saying, right? Like, oh, you can do graphic design, like, but I sometimes struggle with like how to put people into roles that are more like back end type work, because I'm not a back end type work person. And so I'll like, you know, be like, okay, let's canvas. I know you're uncomfortable, but let's try it anyway. And it's like, no, that's probably not the right role for everyone. So I think it's important to really listen, and then to like engage in like challenging conversations, and not necessarily always agree, but like push back and challenge people, because I find that when I do that, people remember that conversation and they respect you more, even though it might have been uncomfortable at the time. And it helps to build a better and longer lasting relationship long term. And so I find that too with like, you know, like a lot of like organizations working with politicians and elected officials, like just like, oh, yes, yes, yes to the elected. And it's like, you can do that and they'll like that, but will they respect you if you never push back or challenge, you know? And like, what do you want? Like, do you want to just be a yes man, or do you want to like actually tell them what you think? Or you're just going to like say yes to their face and say something else to someone else behind their back? Like, I don't know. So those are some things.
Great. Just in the interest of time, we'll skip question number 4 because it sounds like you guys already answered a lot of those questions. Question number 5, how do politics, civil rights movements, social climate, those sorts of things affect your jobs?
I can go. Very greatly. So we're at United Working Families, we're building a political party in Chicago. And so, you know, like we would like to at some point like govern, right? And like govern in the right way that really like includes people in decision making, not like money. And so I think when thinking about like how politics and social movements has affected our work, the example that I'm thinking about is like Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. Like a year ago, I wouldn't have said that United Working Families was an abolitionist organization, really. And today, I would say that we are. And that is because like the movement in the streets like changed many of our organization's viewpoint on the issue. And we decided to stand with Black activists getting beat up by police and not the mayor, for example. And so I think in that way that has like completely changed our organization forever. And many of our organizations struggle with that. They're like, wait, what? Defund the police? When did we agree to that? And it's like, well, we voted on it. You may have voted no, but we're a democratic organization and majority of people voted yes, you know? So I think that's an example, but I also think like there's always that challenge of like, now that we're electing people to office, those elected officials have to like work within a system that isn't made for them. Many of our electeds are Black women of color who used to work in nursing homes, and now they're in Springfield passing legislation, and they've never managed a staff. They've never, you know, dealt with having to fundraise for their political organization. And so, and they have 3 kids and they have to raise their family and they're a single mom. And so it's just like, yeah, I think, I don't know, in many ways.
At Embarc, we serve primarily Black and Brown students in really Chicago's most divested neighborhoods. And part of what we do through our curriculum is empower our students, give them the space, the tools, and the money to get involved with these movements and figure out what's most important to them and their communities. And it's our job to help be facilitators for that and help teach their teachers how to be facilitators for that. And so it's really impactful for us because it shifts what our students are doing in their class. And part of our curriculum is that it really allows the students to guide what's being taught, what they're doing specifically. And we have a change agency unit where our students actually spend months as a class working together on a cause of their choice. We fund it, we train them for it, we connect them to folks that are also involved in it. And so depending on what's going on in their neighborhoods or maybe the makeup of their class specifically, that might influence what they choose to do for that. And that's something that's really empowering about the work that we do, is that it's essentially based on what our students care about. And most spaces don't give the young people the chance to act on these, because they're oftentimes afraid, and it can be scary giving people power, especially when we normally don't give like 15 to 18-year-olds this type of power and money to go after what they want. But that's what we're trying to change in education, is that these are the tools that help young people succeed after high school, but they're also the tools that help change communities so that these students can take them back and become their communities that they're proud of, that they want to live in, that have the resources that they need to do well. And so I would argue that almost anything that's currently going on, it's then what impacts what our students are doing through the curriculum that we have.
I think more and more people are starting to realize that like politics sort of permeates every single parts of our lives, right? And I think so even with the previous administration, I think we had such a hard time for the next couple of years because, our work is in health policy, right? So is, working in health policy. And so when you have like an administration who's trying to get rid of, the Affordable Care Act and stuff like that, they're directly affecting our clients. So we had to push back on that. We had to say, not only say, yeah, folks need to keep their healthcare coverage, but also, we need a better system than what we have now, right? And so it definitely affects it. I know C3s are not supposed to be like, they're supposed to be non-political, but, those conversations still happen in the inside because it very much affects our functions. And even with social movements or even civil rights movements, those are internal discussions that we have all the time because as social justice oriented folks, we have to start looking internally, and not separating ourselves from what's happening on the outside, right? Because a lot of the folks that we're helping are, people of color, people experiencing, a lot of people who are basically at the margins of society. And so in order for the organization to succeed, we do have to be aligned pretty much ideologically. And I think it's, I think it's more and more, it's becoming, every nonprofit, I feel like there is a shift in nonprofit culture, at least, that we need to have these conversations. And as Ryan said, having those tough conversations, because a lot of us, we do this direct service work, but on the side, we also have all these other, things that we support because we understand that it's all part of a system, right? And so like, and there's like webs of power here, right? And untangling all of that is very, very difficult. But step one is acknowledging, and step two is discussing it, and then 3 is doing something about it. So, but yeah.
I would just add, just from an international development perspective of just how it affects our work, is just the importance of working through local leadership and not coming in with, all these ideas, and understanding that we are, coming from a completely different context and culture. And so, just it's been really key for us to work with local leaders, people that were born and raised in the communities that we work alongside, and letting them take on the leadership and ownership of our programs, and just saying, we're here to support as you see best fit. And I think that's helped us a lot, but really just realizing, whatever community that you want to work alongside is, I know we talked about listening earlier, but just really getting to know the priorities of that community, and what matters to them, and how they want to implement change, and not just trying to have an agenda. And so I think just politics and civil rights movements, and different social justice threads that happen in a community can be very unique to that community and how a community operates and works through it is nuanced. And so just listening and having that be the starting point, it really could affect the way that it affects the way we do what we do. So I think just local leadership and having that affect all the way to your programs. So to that like direct service element is really important, because I think if we go in without that posture, then that's when things often can go awry and things can be misunderstood. And so, yeah, just getting to know the context of within those elements that are so important to like the fabric of any society has been important for us.
All right. Moving on, just jumping to question number 7, we see a lot of students that are interested in this field, but aren't sure exactly what they could actually do in this world. Like when they go to search on Handshake or whatever, they don't know what to search for, what keywords, things like that, or job titles. So could you maybe list off a few specific job titles or like responsibilities, keywords, things they could search for that would kind of lead them to something in your world? And if it's easier to list them in the chat, that's fine too. But if you want to talk through them, that'd be great.
For me, there's like community organizing. There's labor organizing or union organizing. There's political organizing, which I think there's like kind of less of, but like at an election time, you know, there's like campaign manager, field director, fundraising on a specific like electoral campaign. At United Working Families, we're still like a small organization. So we kind of split up our work. Like I do elections, someone does legislation and works with the electeds on like, you know, what kind of policies we're gonna support and come up with, try to pass. And then there's like membership. So building our membership base and growing that and also deepening the work of members. And then there's also campaigns. And so that's like issue-based campaigns or movement-based campaigns that we're engaged in. And then there's like communications and fundraising. And then like executive director who kind of oversees it.
The part of our team that has education backgrounds, that's our coaching team. They train our teachers, develop curriculum. They're all former teachers, so that's kind of how they got into this. My team, the post-secondary team, all of us also have teaching or counseling backgrounds as well, because we do one-on-one coaching with students, but we also create curriculum and train teachers. But our programming team, they're the ones who create our experiences for our students. So we take them on arts and cultural, business, college and career sorts of experiences. Just to name a few, like they'll go to a law firm and learn how to network, but we'll also take them to learn how to do glass blowing or screen printing. So there's a whole ton of experiences. Our programming team creates those. They build the relationships, they build out the experiences. Those people come from all sorts of backgrounds. The commonality is that they have experiences with young people, and in most cases in kind of our age range of like middle school to high school. And so all sorts of backgrounds within that, but that's the common thread. And then our development team that does fundraising, grant writing, and social media. So for those folks, it's more about, you know, deciding that they wanted to commit fundraising to a nonprofit that does education. And so I always say that really no matter what your major is, your career field that you go into, usually you can find a team to work with, a business, a nonprofit that aligns with those other values, even if, you know, inherently maybe that job doesn't feel like it's so social justice oriented. So that's kind of what we have available at Embarc. Oh, and I do want to add one other thing. I'm sorry. when you go into education, especially in Chicago, the teachers union is so strong. I got involved right away in the Chicago Teachers Union, just going to their events and doing those sorts of things. That's a space that you can get involved in right away as a teacher in education in Chicago, as something you kind of are welcomed and a part of, that leads to a lot of other opportunities down the line, whether if you want to stay in education or not, as well as programs that you can teach as electives. So Embarc's an elective class. We have teachers that teach our class. There are other organizations like this, like One Goal. So usually that's picked by the administration of your school, but folks that want to go into education, these opportunities are there, especially if you want to continue on working at those sorts of organizations later on, or really just have the opportunity to continue to do it in addition to your content area. But it's not available to everyone. So make sure the folks at your school know you're interested, or even reach out to those organizations when you know you're going to be a teacher. See what schools have these programs. That's also a good place to start if you want to stay as a teacher in education.
Man, and the handshake was crucial for me in looking for all these opportunities. Can't tell you how many times I looked at handshake, and I searched by area. I never searched by title, and I try to choose, I guess, even areas that I don't think are relevant, but I still sort of look through them. But I would say even browsing through, legal intern titles, not all of them are necessarily meant for law students. Advocate, usually sometimes some nonprofits have like court advocates, medical advocates, stuff like that. And I would really look into AmeriCorps programs. So Volunteers in Service to America. So VISTA programs are great. So they're very modest pay, but the experience that you'll get out of a VISTA, doing a year as a VISTA is it's huge. Most of the folks that I know that were Vistas, or there's another one, I think Aboda, which is specifically for folks who are Jewish, and I want to say there was another one, but Aboda and Vistas, almost everyone that I know that's come out of doing a 1 year with those programs has gotten a job. So I would say definitely look into that, apply for as many as you can, especially straight out of undergrad. They're super beneficial, and they come with other benefits too. Like they offer like a scholarship to pay off your some of your student loans, or if you want to use it for future schooling, or they just give you like a stipend of like $1,200 or something like that. But it's much more worth taking the education scholarship, because it's like $5,600. I don't know if they raised it, but yeah, I was able to pay off a student loan with that, so it's pretty good.
We have a pretty small team here, but it's just, there's 2 of us here and then 1 in Guatemala. But I would say, well, when we were looking, one thing that we looked to first was our actual volunteer community. And so I would say if you have any time at all, I know time is a pretty hot commodity for college students, but even if you can just volunteer once a month, or really try and give your time to an organization, or just take, if you can give any time, I think that helps. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of internships for the nonprofit sector are often unpaid, which makes it challenging. And I hope that changes in the future for this industry. But I think that even if you can just give a little bit of your time, that'll help you, A, not only get your foot in the door, but B, you'll get to see like the ins and outs of an organization. Because on paper, it's really easy to see a nonprofit and say, oh, that sounds great, but then when you're really like starting to learn about how they do things, and their the core things that they stand by, or just how they're even like funded or operated, once you spend more time around an organization, you'll probably get a lot better of a feel for those things and if it's the right fit for you. So I would say, even if you can't do a full-blown internship, starting as a volunteer is great throughout your college career. And then upon graduation, just, I guess for a small nonprofit, you might want to just try to look on their career tabs. But yeah, so I think just like thinking of like internship opportunities, looking even for a word like volunteer, or I'm not sure if you can just search for unpaid opportunities, or you can put that in the title. Or like pro bono is another fancy way that we can put like you're giving your time. That might help you find opportunities on Handshake.
Great, thank you guys. So it looks like we just have a couple minutes left. So I want to open up to any questions. We probably have like time for one, maybe two, just to be mindful of everyone's time. We can pass on any questions that you have, but do any students have questions about anything for our panelists? Okay, quiet group, that's fine. If you have any questions, let us know. We can pass them along to the panelists. But thank you guys so much for being here and spending your time with us. Like we mentioned at the top of the call, we'll share this out through our YouTube once we get it up through our marketing team. But thank you guys so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And let us know if we can help with anything else. I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll just for the students that are here. Panelists, you're free to go and carry on your great work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.